Hi, Carmen. Thank you so much for joining me today. And so the first question someone asked was, did you always want to be childless?
Well, when I was a teenager, I thought that I was going to have babies and I was going to get married and I was going to do certain things because that's what you're told that you should want. Um, so I had names picked out for my children. So when I was a teenager, I still, I had that fallacy of like, yeah, I'm gonna grow up and I'm gonna go to university and then I'm gonna meet a man and we're gonna get married and we're gonna have a boy and a girl and I'm gonna live my life happily ever after.
Yes.
And then when I was 22, I realized I do not want any of those things. Like there's nothing within me that actually wants to raise a child.
And was there something specific that made that change for you? Like,
I don't remember like a specific trigger, but I do remember thinking, even at that age, I mean, at 22, we're all still babies, but I remember thinking one day, because at that age, my youngest niece was about 4, and I love her and her older sister and my nephews who have since been born. Yeah, and I think my nephew was probably a newborn or a couple of months old at the time. And I love them, they are amazing. But I remember thinking to myself, I don't want this. I don't think that getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to change and feed a child is something that I want to do or even have to sacrifice. I don't want to have to sit and do homework. I don't want to go to school plays and watch them be a tree. I don't want any of that.
yeah,
And while I love my nephews and nieces, and I have done the things where I've gone to their school plays and watched them be a tree or a boxer or listen to Eye of the Tiger for the fifth millionth time. Um, and I've done it, lovingly because I love them so much. I don't want that for myself.
did you ever feel like less of a woman because you don't have children?
So I definitely myself personally don't feel like part of my identity as a woman has to be to have children. Just
Yeah,
because I have a uterus doesn't mean that I'm a woman. Just like every single person who has a uterus isn't necessarily a woman. There
yeah,
are trans men and women who might have uteruses or might not, but
yeah,
they still identify as female. So
yes,
just in the same vein, I don't think that me not using what I was born with means that I'm any less of a woman. But I
yeah.
have had people go, but what if your husband wants babies? What if you get married one day and your husband wants babies? I'm like, well, then he's going to have to get married to somebody else.
What is the most hurtful thing someone has ever said about this specifically to you?
Well, there's been the thing of what if um, someone doesn't want you because you don't want to have kids? The insinuation that I am less attractive as a partner because I don't want to have children. That is my only worth. My only worth is to give birth to babies, and that is incredibly hurtful. It's also 2 days before I got sterilized, I had a conversation with my mom, um, and I told her this was what was happening, and she was, of course, upset as she would be. Um, and she also did the whole thing of, but what if you meet a man one day and these things happen and blah blah blah. And I was like, but that's not the way it works. I firmly believe that I don't want children, and if a man comes into my life and says he does, then unfortunately it's not going to work. And
Yeah,
since that has actually happened, since I met a wonderful person that I had a great relationship with, the relationship has since ended, and we're still very friendly. But he eventually wants kids one day, and I don't. And
yeah,
we know that we're not compatible in that aspect.
yeah.
And while it breaks my heart that we can't be together, I know it's the right thing because I literally considered going, but could I change my mind? Could I actually do this? Could I have kids for this person? And that is the worst reason in the entire world to want to have children, to
Yeah,
have them for somebody else, because somebody else wants them.
yeah,
Um, and just, to keep a relationship alive. And I think it would create resentment and it would lead to many problems down the road. And I don't know if I would appreciate having that child even because I would just be thinking, oh, I had you because your dad wanted you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of I genuinely wanted to create life and share of my experience with someone and, have another little human that I can look after and raise and make into a good person. But that thought alone terrifies me.
What if you change your mind?
Yeah, like I said, I did consider it for a bit.
Yeah.
I genuinely had a period of about 3 weeks where I went, could I? Would I change my mind? And did a lot of introspection, spoke to my therapist, did a lot of kind of thinking about it, and eventually realized I cannot do it. So I think intrinsically I will not change my mind. But even if I did, there is still the possibility of conceiving through IVF, which I probably won't do because the idea of being pregnant freaks me out.
Yeah.
And then there's adoption.
Yes.
There are millions of babies that need homes, or not even babies, toddlers and 7-year-olds and teenagers who need homes.
Yeah.
And if I could help one of those people or kids to be a better human, then why not?
Was it painful?
When I woke up, it was probably on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 9.
Sure.
And because I was in a government hospital, they didn't give me drugs immediately. So it wasn't like a nice cushy hospital where the nurse went like, oh, let me give you some. No, it wasn't. I woke up in extreme pain. It was probably the worst period pain I've ever had, turned up a notch. I was literally curled up in a little ball in the bed, just like crying my eyes out because I was in so much pain. Because what they do is they insert a clamp that holds down, or insert a clamp into your cervix and it holds it down. So that they can do everything and, before the arm and the camera and all those things. Also, and TMI, but going to the bathroom the first time afterwards is a very uncomfortable experience. Sitting down is not fun. I sat there for about 10 minutes just waiting for something to happen.
Is there anything that you would like to share just with like the general public, something that if they maybe speak to someone else that has gone through this process or is considering this process, what would be helpful, or what to keep in mind, or how to be just kinder to people that have made this decision? Just something from your own experience that you would like to share?
Like to say to people, don't use the word selfish, because you don't know people's reasons. Mine are for my mental health reasons, and also the fact that I do not think I have the ability to raise a child. And I think that would be unfair to the child. So that to me is not selfish. But there are also women who cannot conceive, or who have gone through the trauma of miscarriage, or gone through sexual trauma, or any of those other things. And so for women or people who have the ability to give birth, do not call them selfish because they have their own reasons. You decided to have a baby, great. If you are capable of giving that child all the love in the world, of attending to all their needs, of making sure that they go to school and they have food in their bellies and all those other things, if you are completely able to look after them, fantastic. And very, very happy for you and happy for that child. But there are those of us who do not have that capacity, whether it be with actual monetary wealth, or whether it be being able to provide for the child physically or emotionally or whatever it is. So there are things that some people just cannot handle. And I don't ever think that that is selfish. Just like deciding not to adopt a puppy from the SPCA is not selfish, because if you do not have the means to be able to provide a safe shelter for an animal, why would you want to do the same thing to a child? If I can't afford to buy pet food every month and take my cat to the vet when they're sick, I'm definitely not going to be able to do this for a child who needs so much more. So why would I want to do the same thing?
I really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for giving me the platform to be able to speak about it, because I do think that it's very important that people know that there is an alternative to wanting children or having children, and that it's okay if you don't. And that sterilization, while it is very difficult for women to achieve, is also not impossible. So Thank you for giving me the platform to do that.